right on cue, Joe.
Welcome back, everyone. It's David, and Week 6 of the NFL had some hits and misses. Derrick Henry and Aaron Rodgers proved to us why the king stay the king. Reports of Patrick Mahomes' demise have been greatly exaggerated. Cowboys-Patriots was a classic, as Dak Prescott shredding a Bill Belichick-coached defense for over 400 yards was a treat to watch. The Miami Dolphins just hit rock bottom, while the Seattle Seahawks and Cleveland Browns may be close to joining them. Now that teams are starting to hit their bye weeks, the action won't be as full throttle as it was to begin the season, but they've still left us plenty to discuss. If you like what you see, be sure to hit that subscribe button and give us a follow on social media. Steelers-Seahawks was the best, worst game ever. We've been blessed with some truly great primetime games this season, but a showdown between Geno Smith and Ben Roethlisberger was not one of them. Give credit to Seattle though. After falling behind 14-0 in the first half, it looked like they were cooked. But they were able to take advantage of Pittsburgh's poor run defense by having their third-choice running back gash them for over 100 yards. The ending, however, was a comedy of errors. This was the type of slapstick farce you'd expect to see from the Three Stooges. After everyone made the same "you can't give Geno Smith a minute and a half to work with" joke, he actually did his part and marched the Seahawks down the field to get them into field goal range. Metcalf, though, did everything he could to undo that. All you have to do after catching the ball is to go out of bounds. What the hell are you thinking? Clearly, he was trying to be a hero and recreate Diggs' Minneapolis miracle. The stuff with the clock at the end made no sense too. Geno clearly gets the spike off with 1 second left, but everyone in the stadium is cheering because they thought that he ran out of time. Then, when the refs got together, they concluded that there was 3 seconds left? And then they have to spike it again? The fact that they didn't even bother to explain any of this only made it worse. And of course, a forced turnover on this hero play by Geno Smith was the only way this battle between the two worst starting quarterbacks in the league could end. This could very well end up being a pivotal contest for both clubs. The Seahawks need to pick up as many winnable games as they can while Wilson's out in order to preserve their playoff hopes. If they lose to the Jaguars in 2 weeks, they may as well just call it a day. As for the Steelers, after they found themselves reeling, they've now managed to win back-to-back contests. And while we can expect most of their games to be as hard to watch as this one was, winning is all that matters in the end. Don't count the Steelers out of the playoffs just yet. The Dolphins need to hit the reset button. Their season has already been a disaster, but it doesn't get any worse than losing to the Jacksonville Jaguars, who just snapped a 20-game losing streak dating back to last year. No one wanted to be the team that gave Urban Meyer his first career NFL win so that he could celebrate like this.
Hey everybody, we're all gonna get laid!
I've tried my best to defend Tagovailoa since he came into the league, but he's clearly not the answer for the Dolphins. If you remember, he came with risk when they drafted him. He suffered a serious injury during his final season at Alabama, but they gambled on his upside. Instead, it's looking like the same injury issues have carried over to his NFL career, and it's limiting the Dolphins' offense as a result. Take this 4th and 1 play that saw the Dolphins hand it off. They were clearly too scared to put the ball into his hands to make a play in case of re-injury. In hindsight, seeing Justin Herbert go just 1 pick later has been tough to stomach. Even the moves the Dolphins have made to try and help Tua out haven't worked, such as drafting Jalen Waddle. They were hoping it would have the same effect as what we've seen in Cincinnati between Joe Burrow and Chase, and the two of them clearly have great chemistry. Waddle scored twice and for the first time since week 1, but you can't build a successful offense with just 2 former college teammates. For example, an offensive line is paramount, especially since it's their job to keep your injury-prone starting quarterback upright. The Dolphins might be tempted to start fresh with the new QB, but the class for the upcoming draft is slim pickings. To make matters worse, the Dolphins traded their first-round pick to the Eagles in the move that allowed them to select Waddle. If they end up finishing second worst in the league, they'll not only miss out on a key piece, they'll help to accelerate another rebuild. The 2021 draft is shaping up to be an epic disaster for the Dolphins, and while there is a way for them to start fresh, At the moment, their outlook is pretty bleak. Brandon Staley outsmarted himself. Or in the immortal words of Ricky, I am smart, and I'm self-smarted basically by myself from nature. I've self-learned myself. After a great start to the season for the Chargers that garnered MVP attention for Herbert and Coach of the Year talk for Brandon Staley, there was a lot of buzz around this week's clash with the Ravens. But by winning in a blowout, the Ravens helped separate themselves from some of the other contenders in the AFC, while longtime Chargers skeptics were given new ammunition. The moment that stood out the most from this game was LA's decision to go for it on 4th and 1 at their own 19 when they were down 24-6. While I'm always going to be a proponent for teams that go for it on 4th and short, they also shouldn't be aggressive just for the sake of it. The 4th down decision bot actually agreed with the Chargers' decision to go for it on the play, but that doesn't excuse the play itself from being poor. Now that Staley has built up a reputation of going for it on every single 4th down, he can't exactly catch opposing teams off guard anymore. They know to anticipate it and how to defend it whenever the situation comes up. And if they keep going for it, even when they're pinned deep in their own end, they're going to come dangerously close to approaching that being aggressive for the sake of it territory. If they're so hell-bent on the approach, then mix up your aggressiveness from time to time at least. Perhaps running a fake punt on that down would have gotten the job done. Beyond that though, leaving in Justin Herbert at the end of the game when it was well beyond reach in the 4th quarter was a classic case of coaching malpractice. The last thing Chargers fans want to see is their franchise quarterback getting hurt on a meaningless play. If they want to shake their reputation of being postseason flamlets, they've got to start thinking more long-term. So far, Staley has proven to be a revelation for this Chargers team, but let's hope all this early season success hasn't gotten to his head. Speaking of hyped up matches that ended up being a dud, the Cleveland Browns could have gone a long way towards asserting themselves as true playoff contenders if they had beaten the undefeated Cardinals at home. But instead, they laid an egg and have developed a troubling pattern of inconsistency this year. Unless they can figure out what to do on both sides of the ball, they can't be considered true contenders yet. At first, it seemed like offensive struggles and poor play by Baker Mayfield were going to plague the team. But as long as their front seven, led by Myles Garrett, remained fearsome, they had a chance of stopping anyone. Then they faced the Chargers and gave up 47 points. Even though they lost, they scored 42 themselves, so it looked like their offense was starting to click again. But against Arizona, they had a flat-out poor showing on both offense and defense. The final scoreline may have actually flattered them somewhat, since, after all, one of their touchdowns was on a Hail Mary that was more fluky than anything. Of course, the Browns were missing a key part of their offense, their running game. They didn't have Nick Chubb to start the contest, and Kareem Hunt went down for what's being reported to be a very long time. But even if they were both playing, it's hard for any team that commits 3 turnovers to win a game. But you've got to feel bad for the Browns. Several key players left the game battered and bruised, and they'll only have until Thursday to get them back. If Case Keenum and Dearness Johnson have to start against the Broncos, they'll likely be staring down a 3-game losing streak. That said, Ravens fans can point to the fact that they've been without their 2 starting running backs all year, yet they've still raced out to a 5-1 record thanks to a career season from Lamar Jackson. Yes, the Browns have been spoiled by poor quarterback play for the last 20 years, and they should be the last fan base in the world to be complaining about Baker Mayfield, but he has been underwhelming. It hasn't been all on him though, as the Cardinals got some easy touchdowns thanks to some poor communication along the secondary. The Browns started this season thinking they could take the AFC North crown, but now they might end up finishing behind the Bengals in their own division. For all the Titans did in the offseason, their 3-2 start so far has been pretty underwhelming. But their performance on Monday night might be just what the Tennessee Derrick Henrys need to go on a big run. Pun totally intended. The Titans and Bills found themselves in a very similar situation to when they faced off last year. That was a Week 5 game on Monday night, though it was actually Tuesday night thanks to COVID, with both teams undefeated. But it was the Titans who won big, with this Derrick Henry play being the lasting image of the night, as well as one of the most iconic stills of the season. Even though Josh Norman is long gone, that play was why the Titans stood a good chance of beating the Bills, no matter how good they've looked to begin the year. Because of whether it's Josh Norman, Norman Gene Gray, it don't matter. Derrick Henry's going to run all over whoever they put in front of him. As soon as he broke off for a 76-yard touchdown run, the Bills' defense knew they were in for a long night. As we saw in the playoffs, the Titans will have to eventually mix it up and run more plays than just spamming half-back dive up the middle. But what we've seen from Henry these past 2 seasons has been truly special, so we should all enjoy it while we can. As for the Bills, they will need more from some of their offensive stars. Stephon Diggs has as many touchdowns this year as his brother does. And he's a DB! It speaks to the Bills' impressive depth, of course, that they've done so well despite this quiet season. But come playoff time, Diggs needs to be relied upon. It's encouraging that many agree with McDermott's decision to go for it at the end. After all, why would you even entertain the idea of letting Henry back onto the field in overtime? But the decision to line up in shotgun formation is questionable at best. Now, going into a bye and a loss like this is always the worst thing, since they'll have to sit and stew over it for 2 weeks. They might be inclined to switch up their defensive schemes, but you won't find another running back that can do what Henry just did. This play too, in which it bounced off the helmet and straight into the arms of Julio Jones, is also not something the Bills should be faulted over. The worst thing the Bills can do is overreact to this loss and derail their early season momentum.